My name is Brandon Lewis. I am the founder of the Tennessee Conservative News. I want to talk to you a little bit about the school voucher bill and breaking down exactly what is in it. You're hearing lots of ads on it. You'll hear more about it from your elected officials. And so we're going to be digging into that. There's this Educational Freedom Act that is being much ballyhooed. And I will say this, for the 20,000 students that will receive it, and it is only 20,000, okay, we'll get into the numbers here in a moment, it could be a godsend, right? It could be a godsend because I grew up dirt poor. My father couldn't read or write. I lived in a sawmill slat house with a wood-burning stove, one sink in the kitchen that belched old red well water, and it was tough, and it would have been great if I could have gotten into a better school. So for these 20,000 students, it could be a game changer. However, the issue with the bill is politicians say one thing and then do another. And so right now, what we're seeing is that we're being told that this universal school choice bill is going to affect people all over the state, when in fact it affects less than 2% of students. Further, the applications roll out at 5,000 students per year. Now, what does that mean? We've got 1 million students thereabouts in Tennessee schools. So what that means is it will take 197 years for this thing to become universal. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, I don't know why they don't pitch it as what it is instead of pitching it as something bigger than what it is, because I think that hurts your credibility. And so it's 197 years, and that assumes no population growth in Tennessee. And, of course, we're going to have population growth, so who knows? It could be 300 years by the time we keep going. Further, the scholarship amount is $7,000. So if you take $7,000, and because I'm a business coach by trade, I've done that for the last decade for painting contractors, you take $7,000 and you multiply it by 20,000, you get $140 million. I think one of the best ways we could fund this program is by eliminating illegal alien education in Tennessee, because that would save us about $700,000, and then we would still be revenue neutral, actually making a little money on this. Now, there's something else in this bill that they don't talk about, and there's a blanket pay raise of $2,000 per student, or per teacher, rather, in Tennessee. And regardless of performance, and I'll talk to you a little bit about my opinions on this, because I do run a school for a living. I do it in the private sector. But when you just give everyone a raise, regardless of their performance, their input, their productivity, you end up with situations where you end up rewarding folks that are doing a bad job, and the folks that should be even getting a bigger raise are left out. So this whole blanket raise stuff is just it's really hush money for educators not to rock the boat on this. It's just a small group of people. Don't worry. So that cost $128 million. So we're going to add them both together. It's $268 million. Okay, that's the first thing. And the other issue that drives me nuts about this is that you would think, okay, if we're going to pull a kid out of the school system, the taxpayers will save some money, right? They're getting $7,000 to go to their school of choice. It costs $12,000 to educate a student. That sounds so awesome. That means that now the state and the taxpayer has saved $5,000 per child. Excellent. No. The money still goes to the school, whether the child de-enrolls or not, which means now the cost of educating that child has gone from $12,000 approximately to $19,000 per pupil. It makes no sense. Homeschool parents have asked to be left out of it entirely, and for a lot of the reasons that you'll see later on in the bill, they've asked to be left out of it entirely, yet Trump is proposing a $10,000 per year child tax deduction for folks that homeschool their kids. And I'd love to see that thing roll through. God knows we could use it. We live up on Signal Mountain, Tennessee, but I still opt to either privately educate or homeschool, as we're doing now, our children. And the other thing is the private schools that are accepting this, there are strings attached. And that is, the first thing is that the schools have to now administer the TCAP and some of the other tests. Well, the issue is when the government tells you what you're going to be tested on in order for you to receive money, well, what do you have to do with your curriculum then? What do you have to do for your curriculum? For example, if I said I was going to administer a physical test and you had to do 20 pull-ups and you had to run a mile in 10 minutes and you had to be able to jump this high or you didn't get paid, well, how would you train? You would train to meet those specifications. And so that's the first issue. The second, although the bill does have language in there saying that the autonomy of the school will be protected, the issue it's just in the bill. And anybody the next year could completely amend or change that. And once the school gets hooked, addicted, if you will, on this government money, it could corrupt the private schools and the Christian schools just like it has in many cases the government schools. And essentially, it is like almost everything else you hear, like the continuing resolution that was ballyhooed initially, that was this big, huge, bloated 1,400-page bill. You got to pass it, you got to pass it, you got to pass it. There's great things in it, great things in it. And thank goodness we had a small contingency of conservative Republicans that stonewalled and dragged their feet on that until we got a less crappy bill. And often with government, less crappy is about all you can aim for. And so as someone who runs an education, a school, essentially for adults and who own trades businesses, specifically the coatings industry, here's why I don't think that this is going to work out the way that they say it will. The first thing is, imagine that you ran a business where whether you performed well or whether you completely failed your client, you got paid the same amount of money. Imagine that no matter how bad the scores got, you would continue to get funding. What if you couldn't fire your worst performing coaches or teachers? What if you had to retain all of them? And what if your clients complained about it, if they showed up knocking on your door saying, hey, you sold me a roof, it leaks. You said, pound sand, go talk to your school board. They turn deaf ears to you. Nothing ever changes. And so it has been my experience in both education and business that when the incentive structure is not present, people perform just as you might think they would. And that is, how little can I do for how long can I do it? Now, does that mean that we do not have some excellent educators in our schools that are trying their best to give these kids bright rays of hope? Of course we've got those folks. Ran into a lot of those growing up in public education. But I also say that I've spent a lot of time that was completely wasted, and I had a lot of teachers who were just marking time. And this is back in 1998 and before. And later on, when I went to get my college education, I mean, the multiculturalism, the critical race theory and stuff was already sneaking into curriculum in schools. We had huge arguments with some of my left-leaning teachers, and it affected my grades. I still graduated magna cum laude, but I didn't care. Life's too short to fail to tell the truth, and if you tell the truth, there is typically a price. If you want to lie, there's typically a reward in politics.